What happens when a royal guest walks onto a daytime talk show expecting preferential treatment, only to be met by a host who refuses to back down? In just 34 seconds of one shocking comment, everything unravels, leading to the most explosive exit in talk show history. This is the story of the day Meghan Markle appeared on Loose Women, and how one conversation spiraled so far out of control that host Denise Welch had no choice but to do the unthinkable. The tension started building from the very first moment. The studio lights were blazing. The audience was settled in their seats, buzzing with excitement. This was supposed to be a friendly chat, a lighthearted conversation about life, motherhood, and moving forward. But from the second Meghan walked onto that set, something felt different. The energy was off. Even the producers backstage could sense it. They exchanged worried glances as they watched through the monitors, hoping their instincts were wrong. Denise Welch greeted her with warmth, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Welcome to Loose Women. We're so thrilled to have you here." Meghan nodded, but there was something cold in her expression. She sat down, crossed her legs, and looked around the studio like she was evaluating whether it met her standards. Her gaze swept over the set, the cameras, the audience, as if measuring everything against some invisible benchmark. The other panelists smiled warmly, trying to create a welcoming atmosphere. But Meghan barely acknowledged them, focusing instead on adjusting her outfit, checking her hair, making sure everything about her appearance was perfect. Denise, is sure ever the professional, pressed on. "So, let's jump right in. You've been through quite a journey over the past few years. How are you finding life now, settling into this new chapter?" Meghan paused, tilting her head slightly. "Well, Denise, I think what people don't understand is just how difficult it's been for me. The scrutiny, the pressure, the constant judgment. Not many people could handle what I've been through." Denise nodded sympathetically. "Absolutely. I can only imagine how challenging that must be. But I think a lot of our viewers can relate to feeling judged or misunderstood in their own lives, even if it's on a different scale." And that's when Meghan's face changed. Her eyes narrowed. Her jaw tightened. "I don't think you can compare what I've experienced to what everyday people go through, Denise. It's just not the same thing at all." The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few whispers rippled through the crowd. Someone in the third row shook her head in disbelief. Denise kept her composure, her voice steady. "Well, I think struggle is struggle, isn't it? Whether you're dealing with public scrutiny or personal challenges at home, pain is pain. A mother worried about feeding her children, a person battling illness, someone grieving a loss. These are real struggles that real people face every single day." Meghan let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "That's easy for you to say. You've never had the world watching your every move, criticizing every single thing you do. You don't understand what it's like to have photographers following you, articles written about you, people analyzing everything you wear, everything you say." Denise raised an eyebrow. "Actually, I've been in the public eye for decades. I've faced my own share of criticism and public battles. I've been open about my mental health struggles, my personal life. So I do understand what it's like to be judged." Meghan waved her hand dismissively. "It's not the same, Denise. You're a daytime television host. I was part of the royal family. The level of attention is completely different." You could feel the air getting thicker. The other panelists exchanged glances, unsure whether to step in or let this play out. Denise leaned forward slightly, her voice still calm, but with a new edge. "I think what matters is how we handle those challenges, don't you? How we treat others, how we move forward with grace." Meghan's face flushed. "Are you implying I haven't handled things well?" "I'm not implying anything," Denise replied evenly. "I'm simply saying that empathy goes both ways. Our viewers are dealing with real problems too. Job losses, health scares, family struggles. They deserve to have their experiences validated, not diminished." Meghan sat back in her chair, crossing her arms. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I come here to share my truth, and immediately I'm being attacked. Denise's expression remained steady. Nobody's attacking you. We're having a conversation. That's what we do on this show. We talk. We disagree sometimes. We listen to each other. Well, maybe I don't want to be talked to like this. Meghan shot back, her voice rising. Maybe I expected a bit more respect. Denise took a breath, clearly trying to maintain her professionalism. Respect is earned through mutual conversation. I've treated you with nothing but kindness since you sat down. Meghan laughed again, that same hollow sound. Kindness? You've been condescending from the start. One of the other panelists, trying to diffuse the situation, chimed in gently. Maybe we can talk about something else? Meghan, tell us about your recent projects. But Meghan wasn't interested in moving on. Her focus remained locked on Denise. No, I want to address this. Because this is typical. I come onto a show, I'm vulnerable, I open up, and what happens? I get invalidated. I get told my experiences don't matter as much as everyone else's. Denise's voice remained measured, but you could hear the steel underneath. That's not what I said, and you know it. What I said was that everyone's pain matters, including yours, including our viewers. Nobody's experience is more or less valid than anyone else's. Meghan's eyes flashed. You clearly don't understand what I've been through. Then help me understand, Denise offered, spreading her hands. Talk to us, but don't talk down to us. Don't act like your struggles are the only ones that count. The audience was dead silent now. Every eye was glued to the unfolding confrontation. Meghan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to sit here and be spoken to like this. Denise remained seated, her expression calm but firm. You're absolutely right. You don't have to sit here. But if you're going to be on this panel, you need to be willing to have a real conversation. Not just expect everyone to agree with everything you say. Meghan's face was bright red now. This is unbelievable. Do you know who I am? And there it was, the moment everyone would be talking about for weeks. Denise stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving Meghan's. Yes, I know who you are, but that doesn't mean you get to come on my show and treat our audience like their lives don't matter. That doesn't mean you get to dismiss other people's pain because you think yours is more important. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside her chair. I'm not doing this. I'm leaving. Denise's voice was clear and strong. If you feel you need to leave, that's your choice. But let me be very clear about something. This show is about real conversations with real women about real issues. It's not a platform for anyone, regardless of their status, to come on and belittle the experiences of everyday people. Meghan turned toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the studio floor. And Meghan, Denise called out, stopping her in her tracks. If you can't handle being treated like everyone else, if you can't handle a conversation where someone might respectfully disagree with you, then maybe you're not ready to be here. Meghan whipped around, her face a mask of fury. You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've given up. Denise's voice softened, just a fraction. I'm sure you have sacrificed a lot, but so have millions of other people, and they don't get to use that as an excuse to look down on others. For a moment, Meghan seemed like she might say something else. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around at the audience, at the cameras, and at the other panelists who were watching this unfold in stunned silence. Then she said the words that sealed everything. You know what? You people have no idea what it's like to matter, to actually be important. The collective gasp from the audience was audible. Even the camera operators seemed to freeze. Denise's expression hardened completely. That's enough. I think it's time for you to go. Meghan's eyes widened. Excuse me? I said it's time for you to go, Denise repeated, her voice like ice. You've just insulted every single person in this room, every single viewer watching at home. You've shown exactly who you are, and it's not someone I want on this panel. Meghan sputtered, clearly not expecting this response. You can't kick me off. You can't just tell me to leave. Denise stepped closer, her presence commanding. This is my show. This is my panel. And yes, I absolutely can tell you to leave. You've disrespected our audience. You've disrespected this program, and you've shown nothing but contempt for everyone here. The security guards were already moving toward the edge of the set, ready if needed. Meghan's voice went shrill. Do you have any idea what kind of backlash you're going to face for this? Do you know what I can do? Denise didn't flinch. I don't care about backlash. I care about treating people with dignity and respect. Something you clearly don't understand. Now please leave before this gets any more embarrassing for you. One of the other panelists quietly stood up and gestured toward the exit, trying to help ease the situation. Meghan looked around wildly, as if searching for someone to back her up, someone to validate her outrage. But the audience sat in shocked silence. The other panelists looked away. Nobody was coming to her defense. This is outrageous, Meghan hissed. You're going to regret this, Denise. Denise crossed her arms, standing her ground. The only thing I regret is not ending this conversation sooner. You came here with an agenda, and it wasn't to connect with our viewers. It was to elevate yourself above them, and that's not what we do here. Meghan's hands were shaking now, whether from anger or humiliation. It was hard to tell. I was trying to share my story. I was trying to be honest. Being honest doesn't mean being cruel, Denise said quietly. Being honest doesn't mean telling a room full of people that they don't matter, because they're not you. You crossed a line. And you know it. For just a second, something flickered across Meghan's face. Was it regret? Realization? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold fury. Fine, Meghan spat. I'll leave, but everyone's going to hear about this. Everyone's going to know how I was treated here. Denise nodded slowly. Good. Let them hear about it. Let them hear about how you came onto a daytime talk show and told working mothers, struggling families, and everyday people that they don't matter. Let them hear about how you couldn't handle a respectful disagreement without throwing a tantrum. I'm happy for that story to get out. Meghan turned on her heel and stormed toward the exit, her expensive handbag clutched tightly under her arm. As she reached the door, Denise called out one last time, "Mom, Meghan." She stopped but didn't turn around. I genuinely hope you find some peace. I hope you learn that being important isn't about status or titles. It's about how you treat people, especially the ones who can't do anything for you. Meghan stood frozen for a heartbeat. 2 heartbeats. Then she shoved the door open and disappeared into the corridor beyond. The studio remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then Denise turned back to the camera, composed herself, and addressed the audience directly. I apologize that you all had to witness that. This show has always been about creating a space where women can talk openly and honestly, where we can disagree respectfully, where everyone's voice matters equally. That will never change. The audience erupted into applause. It started with one person, then another. Then the entire room was on their feet, clapping thunderously. Denise's eyes glistened, but she smiled, clearly moved by the response. Thank you. That means more than you know. One of the other panelists reached over and squeezed Denise's hand. That took real courage. Denise shook her head. It wasn't courage. It was just standing up for what's right. Nobody gets to come here and make our viewers feel small. I don't care who they are. The applause continued, waves of it washing over the set. When it finally died down, Denise took a deep breath and looked into the camera with that warm, familiar smile that viewers had come to know and love. Well, that was unexpected. But you know what? Let's keep going. Let's talk about what really matters. Let's talk about real life. real challenges, real triumphs. Because that's what this show is about. That's what it's always been about. And just like that, the show continued. The other panelists jumped into conversation, sharing their own stories of feeling dismissed or undervalued, of fighting to be heard, of standing up for themselves in difficult situations. The audience participated, calling out their support, sharing their own experiences. What could have been a disaster became something powerful, something real. Because Denise had done what so many people wish they could do. She had stood up to someone who thought their status made them untouchable. She had defended the dignity of everyday people who work hard, struggle quietly, and don't expect the world to bow down to them. She had reminded everyone watching that respect isn't about how famous you are or what title you hold. It's about how you treat others when nobody's forcing you to be kind. The conversation flowed naturally after that, touching on everything from workplace dynamics to family relationships to personal boundaries. Each panelist shared moments when they had to stand firm, when they had to choose self-respect over people-pleasing. I think what happened today is something a lot of people will relate to, one panelist said thoughtfully. We've all encountered someone who thought they were above us, who made us feel like we didn't matter. And most of the time, we don't get the chance to address it. Denise nodded. Exactly. And I want to be clear about something. I didn't enjoy what just happened. I don't take pleasure in asking anyone to leave, but I also won't sit quietly while someone insults the people who make this show possible. Our viewers, our audience members, the crew working behind the cameras, everyone here deserves respect. Another round of applause filled the studio. As the show moved toward its conclusion, Denise addressed the camera one final time. I know this episode is going to get people talking, and that's okay. But I hope the conversation isn't just about what happened. I hope it's about why it matters. About why we all deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of our backgrounds or circumstances. She paused, letting those words sink in. Because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to do our best. And the moment we start thinking we're better than others, the moment we start looking down on people instead of standing beside them, that's when we lose our way. The audience sat quietly, absorbing the weight of those words. So thank you, Denise continued, her voice warm and genuine. Thank you for being here, for supporting this show, for being part of this community. You matter. Your experiences matter. Your voices matter. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. The final applause was deafening. As the cameras stopped rolling and the studio lights began to dim, audience members rushed toward the stage, wanting to thank Denise personally, wanting to express their support. She greeted each one with a hug, a handshake, a genuine moment of connection. You were brilliant, one woman said, tears in her eyes. I've felt so small so many times in my life, and watching you stand up like that, it meant everything. Denise pulled her into a tight embrace. You're not small. You never were. Don't let anyone make you feel that way. The crew members approached one by one, expressing their gratitude, their admiration for how she had handled such a volatile situation. I was ready to step in, one of the security guards admitted, but you had it completely under control. Denise smiled. I've been doing this a long time. I've dealt with difficult guests before, but I've never had someone be quite that openly dismissive of our audience. That crossed a line. Behind the scenes, producers were already fielding calls, preparing statements, bracing for the inevitable media storm that would follow. But there was no panic, no regret. Everyone knew that what happened was necessary. Someone had to say it. Someone had to stand up and remind the world that kindness and respect aren't optional. That they're not luxuries reserved for when it's convenient. They're fundamental. They're non-negotiable. And Denise Welch had just proven that she would defend those principles, no matter who was sitting across from her. As the studio emptied out, Denise sat quietly in her chair, reflecting on everything that had transpired. It had been intense, uncomfortable, even painful at moments, but it had also been honest. And in a world that often values politeness over truth, comfort over courage, sometimes honest is exactly what people need to see. She thought about the woman who had approached her with tears in her eyes, about all the people watching at home who had felt diminished by someone in their lives, who had been made to feel like their struggles didn't count. If today's confrontation gave even one person the courage to stand up for themselves, to demand the respect they deserved, then it was worth it. Every uncomfortable second of it. Because that's what real advocacy looks like. Not carefully crafted social media posts or rehearsed speeches, but messy, difficult, in-the-moment decisions to choose what's right over what's easy. Denise stood up, gathered her things, and walked toward the exit. Tomorrow, there would be headlines. There would be hot takes and think pieces and endless debate about who was right and who was wrong. But tonight, she could rest knowing that she had stayed true to herself, true to her values, and true to the people who had trusted her with their time and attention. She had protected her audience when they needed protecting. She had drawn a line when a line needed to be drawn, and she had shown in the most public way possible that nobody is too important to treat others with basic human decency. Not on her watch, not on her show, not ever. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and the studio fell silent once more, the echoes of the day's drama slowly fading into memory. But the impact of what happened would linger far longer. In living rooms across the country, people were calling their friends, texting their family members, posting about what they had just witnessed. Did you see loose women today? Can you believe what just happened? Denise Welch is my hero. The conversation had begun, and it would continue for days, weeks, maybe longer, because people had seen something rare and precious. But they had seen someone in power use that power not to protect themselves, but to protect others. They had seen authentic leadership in action. They had seen what it looks like when someone refuses to compromise their values, even when it would be easier to just let things slide, to avoid confrontation, to keep the peace at any cost. Denise had proven that peace without dignity isn't peace at all. It's just silence. And silence, especially in the face of arrogance and entitlement, helps no one. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to accept unacceptable behavior. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is demand respect for everyone, not just the person with the biggest platform or the most famous name. That's what happened on Loose Women. That's what Denise Welch understood in her bones. And that's why, when the moment came to make a choice, she made the right one. Not the easy one. Not the comfortable one. Not the one that would avoid conflict or controversy, but the right one. The one that said clearly and unequivocally that every person has value, every voice deserves to be heard, and nobody gets to diminish others just because they think their story matters more. It was a moment of television that transcended entertainment. It became a lesson in human dignity, delivered in real time, with real stakes and real consequences. And people would remember it. Not because it was dramatic, though it certainly was. Not because it was shocking, though it definitely shocked. But because it was true. Because it reflected something people recognize in their own lives, their own struggles, their own quiet battles for respect and recognition. Denise had given voice to something millions of people feel, but rarely get to express. She had stood up when standing up mattered. She had spoken when speaking was hard, and in doing so, she had reminded everyone watching that they could do the same in their own lives, in their own ways, when their own moments came. That was the real gift of what happened. Not the spectacle, but the permission it gave people to value themselves, to defend their worth, to refuse to be made small by anyone. That's the story of the day Meghan Markle walked off Loose Women. But more importantly, that's the story of the day Denise Welch showed the world what real strength looks like. It looks like kindness with boundaries, compassion with courage, and an unwavering commitment to treating every single person as if they matter, because they do.